love to hear their prospective black educators, men.
All right, so this is a good one. So I'm going to put my former program director hat on, right? So I'm going to speak on it from the administrative educational side, and I might have to do a couple of videos because one, I'm going to focus on really just the aspect of how gender plays a role. And this is what I always say this all, I know I say this all the time. Black women, especially, I mean, just in life in general, but especially in medicine, have it doubly hard, right? Because the multiple battles they have to affront, just like they have to affront it in real life, right? Where they have to deal with this misogynistic world that we live in, right? So they got to fight it through that lens. And then they got to fight it through the lens of just being black, right? So let's talk about it from that aspect, right? I can see how, especially being a woman, being in a male, even if you're not, and I hate to say male-dominated specialty, right? But let's say you're in we'll just say a specialty, right? We won't go that deep, not for this video. But you're a woman, you're in a specialty where when you exhibit traits such as leadership, such as, being commanding, such as, being, determined, right, in the positions that you have to be in, how that can actually be seen as negative, right? When you are already looked at in a certain light, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take this person in, because this used to be real life questions that we'd have to deal with. Okay, we take her on. Does she have a family? Does she want to start a family? And we're not necessarily asking those questions because we're excited that she may want to start a family during residency. We're asking these questions. Okay, can her starting a family affect the scheduling? Can her starting a family affect whether she graduates on time? Like, these, again, questions that don't have to do with the medicine knowledge of it, but strictly have to deal with the fact that she's a woman. And then you run into circles where a lot of times, and I can tell you when I first became a program director at the program I was at, it was an 80-20 split, men and women. And I'm sitting here looking like, all right, this is weird as hell, right? Like where are all the women at? And of course, it automatically hit me. If you go into a space where you may not necessarily just feel comfortable being a woman, right? Like it's again, 80-20, right? Like, how could you see yourself in the future wanting to stay at a program like that, right? You don't. So we had to be very proactive in our approach of just, getting women to say, yes, I will come to your program. And yes, your program is open. Yes, your program is safe for me to come in. And in that safety, we had to allow them to mess up. In that safety, we had to allow them to speak up. In that aspect of safety, we had to allow them, the leeway that is typically given to men, right, to be a demonstrative, to be like upset when things aren't going right, because any resident will tell you, like, things don't go right all the time. So I can see how now every single month, because that's what typically happens, every single month you are just graded on like how you interacted with your fellow senior resident or your fellow attending, maybe how you interacted with nursing, right? And you being, again, now, I'm pretty sure they can tell you more than me, the amount of times I would have to get on, the nursing staff, like, hey, like, please don't talk to, my physician, my resident physician, like she's a nurse, right? Like, no, she is a physician. She is a doctor, right? So they would have to fight just to like establish a level of credibility that says, hey, you should listen to me because this is a position of power I'm in. And again, and these are just like, what works well with team, all of these subjective things that will definitely play a significant factor if you run into the senior resident who does not like you, which I got a whole good story for that. So I definitely see how having less objective measures when you go into residency like plays a significant factor, especially for women, but more importantly, Black women, right? Because they're everything that they do, not everything, but things that they do that would typically be like, oh, that's just so and so, or that's just how they act, is going to be deemed negative. It's going to be deemed not the team player. It's going to be deemed, I'm not sure if this is someone I can work with. And that's when you're just dealing with your colleagues. We're not even talking about having to deal with patients who won't address you. And I say won't address you in your position of power, don't see you in your position of power, won't allow you, right, to project yourself in that level position of power. So yeah, I think so those numbers don't shock me one bit. And for those who, because we will typically find one, not to say, we'll typically find one and say 20%. That sounds wild. Give me a second. All right, because I know some people love to be fact checked. I suggest you just Google this article. It will take you to the link of the ACGME presentation publication where these numbers came from. So you best believe being a woman puts you at a disadvantage, and it's so important as a woman to be able to recognize, hey, is this residency going to be a safe space for me? Am I going to be able to grow, be the best position that I can be, and not feel hindered in my natural growth process of going from medical student who don't know nothing, right, to an attending physician who's commanding a team?